Hey, friends. This is Pastor Jonathan. I want to welcome you to this week's edition of Real Talk. Real Talk is a video series where every week we talk about things that are happening in and around the life of Herndon United Methodist Church. Usually, our pastor, Scott Bach Hansen, leads this, but today you get to hang out with me, in large part because today I want to share with you about something that's going to be happening tonight on Wednesday, October 5th at the church. We're going to be having something called a Methodist family meeting. The Methodist family meeting is really about talking around some of the things that are happening in and around the United Methodist Church right now, some of the things that are out in the public, and maybe some perspective on that. Tonight is going to be its own event. We're gonna be able to talk about all that's going on. And so one of the things I wanted to do in this video, as you see my finger briefly there, is tell you a little bit of my story about why I'm a Methodist. And so ironically, we're going to tell this story by taking a tour around my office and some of the art that hangs on my wall, or things that hang on my wall, I should say. And so it might be ironic that we start with some talk about the Baptist Church. I am standing here, and excuse me, I'm going to adjust my camera just a little bit there. Also, I want to let you know, because this is a tour, you've got me on my cell phone camera. If it shakes a little bit, I apologize in advance. So I'm right in front of a really neat piece in my office. This is a painting that hung in my grandfather's office. Above it is an ordination certificate. Below it is a licensing certificate. So my grandfather was a Southern Baptist minister in Mississippi. He served primarily in rural congregations and was known as a great storyteller, a kind of a funny person, and somebody who was very punctual. My mom said that he could be in the middle of a sentence of a sermon, and when the clock struck 12 noon, he would wrap up that sermon. Like it would just end, the worship service would end, and that would be that. I never met my grandfather. He died in 1983. I was born in 1986, but there's a heritage of preachers in my family. And so when I was born, my parents and I originally attended a Southern Baptist church. And then when when I was in the second grade, we moved to a new house in Virginia Beach. My mom was feeling a calling to greater discipleship and leadership in the church. And in the Southern Baptist church, it wasn't possible for her to do that. And so we moved to a Methodist church called Herndon United Methodist Church in Virginia Beach. Now, I don't have any specific kind of things from my time at Herndon in my office, although I will step forward to my desk and I'll show you this lovely picture of me when I was in high school. There you go. Look at all that hair. Wow, what a different time. That church shaped and formed and fostered me in so many different ways. And what that gave me the opportunity to do was to discern a calling to pastoral ministry in the United Methodist Church. So I served as a youth pastor for a couple of years while I was in college, and then I made my way, and we're going to make our way in my office, to a little bit of a different place. I lived my whole life in Virginia up until I went to seminary at Duke Divinity School. So you can see the Duke chapels over my one shoulder. Some other things related to Duke are over that other shoulder. One of the things that I learned during my time at Duke was a real sense of what it would mean to be a pastor in the United Methodist Church. For me, what that meant was that it would be an opportunity to live in God's grace and to share God's love with people both inside and outside the church. I lived there for 3 years, and after that I was sent to my first pastoral appointment, which happened, we're going to go on a little trip again, which happened to be at a church called St. Andrew's in Virginia Beach, Virginia. So here is St. Andrew's. You can see when I left, they were kind enough, here, let me put myself in the shot, they were kind enough to, a lot of folks in the congregation signed a picture of the church with all sorts of well wishes and things like that. And at St. Andrew's, I had an opportunity to experience what it would be like to be in pastoral ministry. I got to learn, I had 3 different senior pastors in 3 years. But what was really interesting about that community is we had a lot of folks who had a wide array of perspectives. So we were in the heart of Virginia Beach. We had a lot of really conservative folks, a lot of really progressive folks. And what was so fascinating about that, amidst all the transition and all the change we had, was there was a lot of learning about how to do life together. And that's something that I carried with me to my next pastoral appointment, which I'm going to show you over here, was Fieldstone United Methodist Church in the southwest part of Virginia. They also did, when I left, a fun little picture with signs and things like that. So Fieldstone, you can tell, was a different kind of church. That building does not look like a church building. It looks like a furniture store, probably, because that's what it was before it was a church. It was a place where people could purchase furniture, and that was a new church start. And what that meant was there were a lot of people who hadn't had an experience with church before who attended there. We reached a lot of college students. We had a summer mission program called SPY that would welcome 400 or 500 teenagers to the New River Valley of Virginia to do construction projects on a regular basis. We had a food pantry that would feed over 1,000 people a month. And that was a very missional place, and it was a place to think about how church might be done differently, how we might be intentional about reaching out beyond the walls of the church to do things in sort of a way of missional engagement and that sort of thing. And now I am serving as the pastor of Herndon United Methodist Church. And this isn't meant to be hidden behind chairs or anything like that, but the banner down there was a welcome banner that hung right out on Bennett Street when my wife Kelly and I arrived here in 2018. And what I love about this church is that we get to be kind of a synthesis of those two churches. We have people who have all sorts of different perspectives, and we find life together. We are missional. We're out in our community. We're serving and sharing God's love in community, and we're discovering how that can impact lives, even our own. For me, a lot of this is at the core of why I believe I'm a Methodist. You can see behind me on this wall that's my ordination certificate, and the lineage. One of the cool things about this, let me figure out where to point my finger. There we go. Is the lineage of folks who I followed in as a pastor. So I'm going to put this a little bit closer so you can see there are a number of different people who've been ordained before me, like a whole lot. But if you go back in this list, you'll see if you've been a Methodist for a while, or if you've studied Wesleyan theology. I'm in the lineage of Francis Asbury. The first church I served in pastoral, or not in pastoral ministry, in youth ministry, was Francis Asbury United Methodist Church. Thomas Koch is in that lineage. There's this great sort of history in United Methodism that we get to draw upon. And it's this great connection that we get to live into. That's one of the things that I love, is that I'm privileged to be the pastor here at Herndon. And I hope I'm privileged to be the pastor here for quite some time. But I know that whenever the time comes where I'm no longer the pastor here, there will be somebody who comes who's really, really great. And by the way, whenever that time comes that I'm no longer the pastor here, it doesn't mean that we say farewell forever. I think about St. Andrews and Fieldstone. We still have many close connections and friends there, even though Fieldstone actually closed a couple of years ago. But we still have so many different connections with folks in those communities. And for me, being a Methodist really now takes on a different role. And I'll show you one last thing here in my office. I have a sign up here this is kind of intentional that we have the sign next to the cross. So you're going to have to see my bald head for a second, and you'll see that sign is from my son, Alfred. It was a gift on the very first Father's Day that we ever celebrated. That was about a year and a half ago. And right next to it is a cross that shows people gathered together from a lot of different, you'll notice that there's a great diversity in those people. One of the things that I'm a big believer in is the idea that church as it is today is meant to be a place where folks feel welcome. That no matter what our story is that we bring to the table, that we are invited to share in beloved community in this place. It doesn't mean that our stories won't change as we come, right? We experience transformation. We experience, hopefully, salvation. We experience so much in the life of the church. But the whole point of being in church together is to find togetherness, to find ways that we can grow and love and care for one another and love and care of God. That leads us out into our communities to love and to care for others. So much of the news about the United Methodist Church right now is really centered on divisions. I'm going to show you one last, and before I tell you that, I want to also tell you the reason why I'm so passionate about this is because of that sign that's next to it. Because guess what? We're raising a kid in the church. And for those of you who are parents, even if you're not parents, you likely can empathize with the idea that what we involve our children in becomes pretty important to us. It means that we want to believe in what it stands for. It means we want to believe that our children are receiving what they need. I love that my son is a part of Herndon United Methodist Church because I see so many people who love and care for him day after day. But I really also love that my son is being raised in a United Methodist Church because I believe it's a context where he will grow and develop. I think he'll be able to discover what faith is for himself. And no matter how that turns out, I hope it will always be a place where he will, and not just a place, but a people where he will find love and acceptance. Because as we grow in beloved community, as we grow in diversity, as we grow to be places and people where others can find home and hope, I think we get to do some of the work of Christ. I'm going to show you one last picture that's on my wall here. So if you notice in this picture, there are a lot of people who are busy drawing lines, trying to say, okay, well, this is what goes here. This is what goes there. I want you to notice the Christ figure. I'm going to try to step out of the picture here. Notice the Christ figure and which end of the pencil he has. He has the eraser up. So much of what I see happening in and around our world, not just in the church, but in our world in general, is we're finding ways to be divided. And I believe we serve a Savior who is about erasing those lines of division, who is about saying, how can we grow in our love for people? How can our love for God inspire our love for people that sends us not to just to love the people that we've always loved, but to love new people, to find new friends, new neighbors, not because the old ones are bad or anything like that, but because the kingdom of heaven is expansive, because we find new life and love in so many ways, and because our call is to make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. So that's a little bit about why I'm a Methodist. I wonder for you, why are you a Methodist? Why are you a part of Herndon United Methodist Church? A lot of times we have different rationales. Maybe we have theologies, maybe we have ideas, and those are all great. I find time and time again that what really tends to matter are the stories that we tell. How are we shaping better stories about what it means to be a part of the big church, what it means to be a part of the United Methodist Church, what it means to be a part of Herndon United Methodist Church? I hope if you're around that you'll join in tonight for the Methodist family meeting. We're going to talk a lot about some of the lines that are being drawn, about some of the future of the church, what that might look like, and how that impacts us at Herndon United Methodist Church. But more than anything, it's a time to come together, not understanding that we're all the same. We're, by God's good grace, we're not carbon copies of one another, but we are together. We're made one in Christ Jesus, and we are made to live in beloved community. So thank you for being that for me. Thank you for the ways that you show life and love to me and to my whole family. And thank you for being a part of the Herndon United Methodist Church community. I hope to see you tonight if you're around. We're in person at 6 p.m. in room 102, or you can tune in online. That online session is also going to be recorded, so if you can't make it tonight, we'll be putting it up later. But I hope you'll be a part of all that's going on in and around Herndon United Methodist Church. Worships this weekend at 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. We're welcoming Will Bailey from Costa Rica Mission Projects, who's going to be our guest preacher. There's a lot going on. Check out HerndonUMC.org, the newly redesigned HerndonUMC.org, I should say, to see all that's going on in and around the life of the church. Thanks for tuning in for Real Talk today. We'll be back next week with another great video. God bless you. Enjoy the day, and I'll see you real soon.